Well, good day! So today's video is going to be going back to the Rankin Christmas universe, and this is also a request video. Plotagon Maker wanted to see Pinocchio's Christmas. So alright, let's go! Alright, so we start off in Italy, and Pinocchio is experiencing snow and Christmas time like for the very first time ever. Which is like pretty magical, right? His father, Geppeto, is teaching him all about Christmas. He's getting him pumped up for the season, so things are going great. Or are they? Because you see, the devious duo of Fox and Cat have some plans for Pinocchio of their own. They want to kidnap him because he is a sentient toy, right? And then they can sell him to like a really rich person as a Christmas gift for their kids. For lots of money. But speaking of gifts, right? Like Geppeto and Pinocchio have been selling their own possessions so they can buy each other a Christmas present, right? So as Pinocchio is out and about, he runs into Maestro Fire Eater, the puppeteer extraordinaire, and Pinocchio decides to do some pretty snazzy comedy shows with him under the stage name of Sir Larry Olive Tree. And while they're doing these shows, Pinocchio meets a beautiful lady puppet named Giulietta, and he's like totally smitten with her. He hopes that she can turn into a living puppet like him, but he doesn't quite know how. And also, Maestro Fire Eater wants to change this puppet into one of the three wise men for another show. Like changing into a new wig, different clothes, gluing on a beard, stuff like that. Pinocchio doesn't want that for her, man. He wants her to be just as beautiful as she is. So he steals her and takes off. Gone. As he is getting chased by the fuzz, he escapes into the Forest of Enchantment, which is a haunted forest. But it's also the forest where Pinocchio was born. Well, in tree form anyway. And then he regales Giulietta with his origin story, when he was a branch on an enchanted tree. The tree which was chopped down and sold to Mr. Cherry for firewood. And Mr. Cherry thought that the wood was haunted because it was talking to him. So he freaks out and gives Geppeto this piece of wood for free. And Geppeto carves the wood up into a marionette. And boom, you got Pinocchio, who didn't come to sentient life. He was always sentient, just, a piece of wood though. We also had a brief cameo by Jiminy Cricket before he got fed up with Pinocchio and took off. But anyway, so Lady Azora meets up with Pinocchio in the forest. You know Lady Azora, right? She's the one who planted the seed in the ground for the tree that Pinocchio was the branch of in the enchanted forest. So yeah, she's technically his mother, right? And she pops out her mom voice to Pinocchio like, "What the hell you doing, Pinocchio? You're stealing stuff, you're running from the cops." Like, dude, man, this ain't the way. If you want Giulietta to be real, you gotta start being a good boy, man. And so he does. Or, well, tries anyway. And Dr. Jiminy Cricket tags along. Meanwhile, Pinocchio's been missing for a while, man, so Geppetto's like stressing bad, right? He's out and about looking for Pinocchio, and he finds a discarded replica puppet of Pinocchio from Maestro Fire Eater, and Geppeto thinks this is the real Pinocchio, and he basically died. Which, holy crap, man, that is actually a pretty deep cut. So after many failed attempts of trying to kidnap Pinocchio, Fox and Cat run into him again, and they convince him to get on a sleigh to go to the North Pole so he can teach Santa's toys how to dance. Which, sounds like a really awesome gig, so Pinocchio's all in, right? But in reality, they are not going to the North Pole. The sleigh driver works for the Duke, and the Duke wants to buy Pinocchio for a gift for his kids. So Pinocchio's kidnapped, put into a Christmas box, and thrown under the tree. And the Duke's kids, Ginger and Jeremy, open up this gift to Pinocchio, and they're like, "Whoa, yeah, that's pretty cool, I guess." And the Duke, being a very busy political man, was like, "Okay, kids, I only got 3 minutes to hang out with you at Christmas, so open up the gift, see you later." So as the Duke is about to leave, Pinocchio is like 5 shades of fury, right? He's all like, "Hey, man, why don't you stop being a deadbeat dad and just hang out with your kids, man? It's like Christmas. You're giving them 3 minutes of like family time? Like what the hell is that? And the Duke thinks about it and he's like, man, yeah, you're right. You know, what the hell am I doing? So he takes the day off from work and hangs out with his kids. So Pinocchio did a really good deed, right? But he's also kind of screwed, man, because it's Christmas Eve and he's far from home. So how will he get back in time to celebrate Christmas with Geppeto? Well, with Santa Claus, that's how. Yeah, man, Santa just flies in, says, hey, Pinocchio, you need a ride? Let's go, man. So they do, man. He flies him right back home and then takes off to deliver more gifts. You know, he's a pretty busy guy. Geppeto sees the real Pinocchio and is like, oh my god, you're alive. This is the greatest gift ever. I'm so happy. And Pinocchio's like, yeah, you know, I've been told by Lady Azar that I gotta be, you know, really good. So I'm gonna start being good from now on. Which is like music to Lady Azar's ears, you know, because she shows up with the puppet Giulietta, and Giulietta is alive. So now Geppetto's gone from being a single person to having 2 kids, you know, basically, because Giulietta's gonna live there. So it looks like everyone's got, you know, pretty much their Christmas wishes at Christmas, so, you know, it's a pretty happy ending, eh? All of that without even spending a dime, and that's the name of the game. And that is also the end of this fantastic tale. Yeah, man, so like, all in all, that was a pretty good little story. Like, you know, it is pretty fun. The characters are actually really hilarious in this one. There's lots of good chemistry between the characters, lots of interesting character traits, and it's pretty funny too, right? Like, there's running gags that happen throughout the episode, and there's just some silly things that kind of happen here and there. I really do like the characters of Fox and Cat. Like, they had a pretty good chemistry going on together, and they were actually a pretty funny duo in this one. Even Pinocchio and Geppeto are pretty awesome in this one, right? Like, they're funnier and sillier than they have been in other Pinocchio iterations throughout the years. And the soundtrack to this is pretty awesomely standard, you know, for Rankin and Bass specials. Like, probably my favorite part of the whole special is the song that Fox and Cat sing to Pinocchio about how Pinocchio can trust them. And the whole song is, I'm telling you the truth, Pinocchio, and if not, may lightning strike me down. And they get hit by lightning every time. And the whole time Pinocchio is like, oh, they just got hit by lightning. They must be telling the truth. I'll listen to them. Silly, funny stuff like that. Pretty good. Some of the other songs are really basic and repetitive, but they're just kind of catchy enough that they get stuck in your head, you know? Dancing, let's go dancing. The only thing I kind of question about it is that it's not really a Christmas special, it's just a Pinocchio story, with a slight bit of Christmas thrown into it, right? I think the writers wanted to do just a Pinocchio story, and that's it, just Pinocchio. But then they're like, you know what, we should have some Christmas in it. It really is the Pinocchio story from the original source material, and they just threw in some Christmas. The first time back in the day when I heard about this special, I was like, oh cool, we get to see a continuation of the Pinocchio story and how he enjoys Christmas. But it's not a continuation, it's just a retelling of his story, and it just happens to be Christmassy. You know, but that's not really all that bad or anything like that. It's just, it is what it is, man. And all in all, honestly, a really fun special, I thought, and I really did enjoy it. So if you haven't seen it yet, I definitely suggest you check it out, because it is pretty fun and pretty awesome, and you'll have some of these songs stuck in your head. But other than that, there's more things to take a look at, and some behind the scenes stuff, and how this all connects to the overall Rankin and Bass Christmas universe. So let's go take a look at that stuff now. So a lot of the plot to this story is actually just rehashing from the original Pinocchio story. A story which debuted in July 7th, 1881, and was featured in Italian children's magazines at the time. So from that original story to this one, some characters' names have changed, and lots of little details in the main story were pretty much the same. Like the carpenter who thought he had a haunted piece of wood and gave the wood to Geppeto. The first thing Pinocchio did was kick Geppeto in the butt once he was alive, and yeah, same kind of thing there. The Fox and Cat were there, you know, and they were jerks the whole time as well. All taken from the original story, but obviously a lot of this stuff is new, right? Like Santa Claus showing up, and other details as well. But still, you know, it does a really good homage to the original stories. And speaking of stories, as this is a Rankin and Bass production, we gotta see how this thing ties into the entire Rankin Bass Christmas universe. So like, right off the bat, right? You got Santa Claus, you know, like one of the most major characters in the entire Rankin and Bass universe. And one thing I do really like about this is that they even reused the Santa puppet from other Rankin Bass specials for this one here, which does look like the one that was used in The Year Without a Santa Claus, you know, for an example. The only difference being is that they kept Santa's squinty eyes, you know, like he just came back from Snoop Dogg's house or something, right? Also, the puppets for the reindeer are the same ones that were used in Year Without Santa Claus as well, and I think a lot of other specials too, but you know, definitely seen these puppets around, right? And realistically, if they're just making a quick cameo, you don't really have to make a new puppet for them. For the most part, each Rankin and Bass special will have a brand new puppet made for the same character for that special, but on a handful of times they do reuse the same kind of puppet here and there, so it is good to see that continuity. And like reusing and repurposing puppets is something that was echoed by Maestro Fire Eater in this special. Like he said to Pinocchio about, you know, his puppets and what he was gonna do with Giulietta, you can change all the puppets up by just adding, you know, a different wig, by changing their clothes, you know, painting their eyes differently and whatever. And to me that kind of feels like a nod to the fans, you know, that like the puppeteers who were worked on this special are kind of pulling back the curtain and kind of showing you a little glimpse as to what happens in the puppet animation process. Much cheaper to reuse a puppet than build a new one. So another thing that is used in a lot of different Rankin and Bass specials is magical people, right? In this special you have Lady Azor, and she's pretty cool, she's pretty awesome, and has some magical powers. Right? Like she basically had Pinocchio living in a branch in a tree. It does kind of beg the question if every tree in the Enchanted Forest is sentient like Pinocchio was, or if it was just him on that branch. I guess, you know, from this special, we'll never know. But she is quite similar to, say, Lady Boreal from Rudolph and Frosty's Christmas in July. Like another cool and awesome, you know, magical lady who helped the main character, you know, Rudolph, by having his magic nose. So those are two examples of magical women in the Rankin and Bass universe, you know, like let alone Mother Nature and all the other kind of magic creatures in the nature realm. And it is kind of funny, the two main characters that these magical ladies helped both had a magical nose. And in the whole Rankin and Bass universe, there seems to be quite a bit of sleighs pulled by animals for certain characters. Like with Santa Claus, you know, like as everyone knows, his sleigh is pulled by reindeer. The villain of Rudolph and Frosty's Christmas in July, Winterbolt, he had a sleigh pulled by snakes, and I still love that concept so much. The sleigh driver in this story had his sleigh pulled by donkeys, and Lady Azor had her sleigh pulled by mice. So a sleigh being pulled by random animals seems to be like the Cadillac of the day, you know? Like, not everybody had it, but it was pretty good. Well, the sleigh driver, you know, he wasn't fancy himself, but he did work for the Duke, you know, so pretty important guy, I guess. The fact that it was snowing in the town that Pinocchio lives in, it really kind of reminded me of The First Christmas, aka the story of the first Christmas snow. You know, it's kind of similar because in that story, in southern France, kind of by the coast, it didn't really snow there, you know, really ever, and when it did on Christmas, it's like super magical, like wonderful, right? Similar thing in this story here. Pinocchio lives in the Tuscany region of Italy. It's pretty warm in winter. It's by the coast, it doesn't really snow there either, but you know, like they had the magical Christmas snow fall down here. Really not a tie-in, but like a really similar vibe between the two different Christmas specials. And just another little note, which I really do appreciate, when Maestro Fire Eater called the police after Pinocchio stole Giulietta, we see the police officers of the time, and they look like they're dressed like a admiral from the Navy somewhere, right? But he is part of the Italian police force called the Carabinieri, who were a police force from that specific region, and back in the day, that's what their uniform looked like. So the historian in me really does love to see these really awesome little nods to history, and like accurately as well. So good on them. But yeah, man, that's, you know, the kind of connections and kind of stuff going on here with Pinocchio and the rest of the Rankin and Bass universe. It's not part of the main story, but clearly there's enough going on here that you see how it is pretty solidified as part of the universe of Rankin and Bass, right? So a wonderful little story. But yeah, you know, like with this, that, those, and the other things, I guess that's that. Right on, and there you go. So thanks for watching the video. I hope you liked it as much as I did making it. Also, feel free to check out the source material that I featured in this video. And if you want to leave a comment on anything you may have liked or things I might have missed in this, you know, feel free to do so. Or anything else, you know, just to say hi. That's cool too. And other than that, you know, have a great day. Thanks.